Returning to our top story, markets ended the day sharply lower after Donald Trump confirmed tariffs on Mexico and Canada would take effect on Tuesday. He said there was no room left to negotiate. Speaking alongside the president, the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick encouraged companies to avoid tariffs by moving production to the United States. Adam Posen is the president of the Peterson Institute for International Economics. It is the Peterson. Adam, you have done much, your institute has done much work on tariffs. We've talked to you before, but now they are coming left, right and centre. And it's the ability of economies to withstand this fire hose of tariffs and uncertainty, which is extremely difficult. How difficult is it going to be this time round?
I think this may be the tipping point, Richard. Thank you for having me back to discuss further. Because as I wrote in Foreign Affairs in the fall, you can do what's called the madman theory of foreign policy or trade policy and threaten things, but at some point you have to make good on your threats to be credible. And there was a lot of chatter about whether or not Trump would actually make good on his tariff threats. Was this just a negotiating position? And even as a negotiating position, you still have to do something. I think, though, people should recognize that if these tariffs are sustained in Canada and Mexico and compounded by the tariffs on steel and aluminum, which particularly affect Canada, we are essentially taking our peaceful, fully integrated, legally protected by USMCA military ally, Canada, and making everything more expensive for them and for us. And it's just a very disruptive policy. For this reason, I think people expect that Canada and Mexico will capitulate in some sense to Trump. These tariffs won't last, but I'm worried that this will set the precedent for more on other countries and other industries.
It is difficult to see, though, how anybody can respond to these tariffs, particularly in the Canada-Mexico cases. They were fentanyl and migrant related. There's no way in this short period of time there could have been a dramatic change in the situation that would justify, that would take these tariffs off. So they're coming, and I don't really know. For example, I'm here in Berlin tonight. One assumes Europe's next, somewhere down the road.
I have two responses. The first thing is you're right about the adjustments, Richard. Mexico already quietly with the Biden administration in their last 6 months did a lot to stem migrants coming to the US border. I mean, already the flows were down by hundreds of thousands. And so now they're just publicly claiming that. The fentanyl, it's ridiculous, as it's always been in the US, to say it's all a question of supply, whereas it's an issue of our domestic pharmaceutical industry, our domestic medical industry, our domestic consulting industry that creates the demand. As long as the demand is there, somebody will try to supply it. But I think the thing about Europe being next is actually really important. Unlike Canada or Mexico, Europe doesn't get to fold in a visible way, and they are locked into things. As your segment from the Hotel Adlon Brandenburg Gate says, this is a turning point.
Right, but Adam, if the goal here is to fundamentally change the terms of trade for the United States, eventually the tariffs will work. I mean, we know that they will shift, but companies can't build new factories in matters of weeks or months. And so I just wonder how long you think it will take for those terms of trade to alter.
I want to push back the characterization it eventually will work, Richard, because there are things like mining rare earths or producing pharmaceutical generics as opposed to innovating pharmaceuticals, which are just completely cost ineffective to do inside the US. And so if it works to force the production of these kinds of low-end things in the US, it will impoverish people in the US. So it can work, right. And then, but not really.
We have a long way to go with this and you and I will talk many more times. And I'm always grateful that you give us the time and attention to speak to us. Adam Posen joining us from Washington tonight.